Welcome to Ask a Bisexual. I'm Sheena. I'm joined today by the fantastic Rae D Magdon, who's just released a book called Lucky 7, and you should all go pick it up because it's full of delightful queer rep, and the birds are joining me today.
Thank you!
And I'm joined by Tara, who's here. Hi, Tara.
Wow. Hello.
I've run out of words for you because I used them
Hi,
all up in the
Tara.
previous podcast.
It's true. It's true.
Okay, so today we're talking about the do's and don'ts of dating a bisexual woman. So I want to finish off the season with a bang and do a fun episode about dating. So what do you and don't you like when it comes to dating, and what tips would you give men or women about dating a bisexual woman?
Oh my god. I haven't dated in 10 years. I've been married for a decade and I haven't dated anybody else, and I thought I was straight when I dated. So I feel like we should give this whole episode to Rae, who might actually have answers.
I'm going to disagree with you on that because you are the primary romance reviewer, so don't think I don't know that you know what you like in a date, woman.
Okay, but okay. You can throw Amazon gift cards at me. That would be effective. You can slide chocolate my way, but it's gotta be high quality chocolate. I mean, food is one of my love languages, so I'm just saying.
I mean, buying me a pizza is a pretty effective way to get me to love you forever.
Yeah, right?
I gotta admit.
There you go.
But yeah, I mean, the do's and don'ts of dating bisexual women, I think a lot of the things I can think of are don'ts.
Oh, yeah.
One of the big don'ts I know of is don't make our sexuality about you. Our sexuality is not a referendum on you as a person. Like, the fact, if I was dating a woman at the present time who identified as a lesbian, I would want her to understand that I am attracted to her and into her as a person, and she shouldn't be threatened by the fact that I am bisexual. And my circumstance is a bit weird, and that's in previous episodes, but really, my sexuality is irrelevant to our connection, except for the fact that I'm attracted to you because I'm attracted to women. Also, on the other side, I wouldn't have another male partner. I wouldn't, because I'm not attracted to men. But something I've heard from my bisexual friends who do occasionally have male partners is they want men to know that their bisexuality is not performative. And I've used that word before in other episodes of this podcast. I think there is this expectation among men that bisexuality is some kind of show put on for their benefit, and it's for them. And it's no, bisexuality is about the person who uses that label. It's about them and who they are. And to reduce it down to a porn category or something that's done for some guy's benefit is really hurtful and offensive and narrow-minded. So fortunately, there are lots of men who don't view it that way. I know your husband doesn't, Tara.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and I would say, especially too, if I were to enter into a relationship, one of the do's would be do accept that I have this past where I have had a really wonderful, happy, healthy relationship with a man, and that's a part of who I am, and I'm not going to discard that in favor of a new relationship. I'm not going to erase my past to make someone feel more comfortable with being in a relationship with me, because
that's a really interesting thought, because now I'm thinking of, if something happened to Tori, I think even though going forward, if he died or something, I hate to think about that, but going forward, would I go back to the lesbian label because it reflects my internal experience better, or would I continue to identify as bisexual because that part of my life is so important and fundamental to my understanding of myself? And I think the answer would have to be I'd continue to identify as bisexual, even if I had no intention of ever being with a man in any romantic sense again.
Well, that's it for me too, right?
Just because that relationship is so crucial to my understanding of myself and my history.
Yeah, no matter what happens, even if, I don't know, one of us were to have some kind of a personality transplant or something so that we weren't compatible in a marriage anymore, I wouldn't deny.
I like that better.
Right? I wouldn't deny what has been such a huge part of my life. it doesn't make sense, and I would never do that to make anyone else comfortable. So I guess, like, in terms of dues, like, do accept that we come as whole people with histories that can include people of either gender, and that's not a reflection on you. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, like anyone else. I mean, I keep coming back to that. Our sexuality is not a reflection on you. That's all I keep coming back to, is our sexuality is for us and our identity, and you have to accept us as a person. It's not a referendum on you at all. It's not for you. It's just a part of ourselves we're sharing with you, just like we share everything else.
And I think this applies to the entire LGBTQ spectrum, and I speak from lesbians. I'm not lesbian for your entertainment. I'm not lesbian because you did something wrong. I'm just me.
Yes, exactly.
That's great and very informative, but not at all fun. So let's talk about fun dating things.
I already said, send me chocolates. What?
Okay, no, you're right. Chocolate is
fun dating things, yeah. I really like people who can enjoy queer media with me. Like, this is why even if I was attracted to them, I probably wouldn't date a straight cisgender guy, because they just don't have that connection to the queer community. Like, I would never we wouldn't have enough overlapping interests because so much of myself is invested in the queer community.
That's where I sometimes wonder if, like, okay, this is where it's going to get funny. So bisexual women get called unicorns, right? Because it's that, like, oh, that mythical creature who's going to have the three-way with me and my wife. And it's like, okay, first of all, no. But I sometimes wonder if Neil is a unicorn because he's like, hey, we should, have you seen San Junipero? Or whatever, however you pronounce it, like that episode of the Black Mirror? He finds the media for me and he wants us to watch it together. And it's not because he wants to watch two girls make out. It's because he wants me to feel validated. So I think he might actually be a unicorn of the straight cisgendered men.
That's really sweet.
Aww.
I mean, there's one or two out there, but yeah, I mean, that's really sweet that he's become such a good ally to you and has helped you come out to yourself. That's adorable. Sounds like a good guy.
What is the best date you've been on?
My first date with Tori was to Niagara Falls, because I used to live in Buffalo, New York, so it was only 20 minutes away, and we went on the Maid of the Mist, and we just could not stop clinging to each other, because we had actually met online when we were babies, and so we hadn't had a lot of in-person interaction until we were about, like, 16, and he came up to visit me with his parents, because there was a family wedding nearby, so he came to visit me. And we had a parental supervised date, which was really awkward. It was so awkward. But despite that, they gave us enough space to go on the Maid of the Mist boat ride under Niagara Falls on the American and Canadian side. And we're in these ponchos. I have a picture of it still. And we were just clinging to each other so tight as this water sprayed in our faces. And it was actually really sweet and romantic, even though it sounds uncomfortable because we walked away with wet shoes and all that. And actually, when I proposed to him, because we proposed to each other, he went first. I proposed to him after that, and I took him to a waterfall in Connecticut where we lived at the time because I wanted to recreate that first date. Only we got lost.
Oh no!
And it was the middle of winter, so we got lost in a park in the snow. I took us to the wrong park somehow, so we never found the waterfall. We walked around. I started my period while we were out in the woods. And then eventually I was just crying because I'm like, I can't find the waterfall. I can't propose. I want to go home. And so he took me home and we took a bath together with special bath bombs. I pulled up Niagara Falls on my computer and lit a bunch of candles and then I proposed. And despite the agony I went through, it was really, really sweet. And I remember it. And yeah, so...
That's adorable.
Don't go looking for waterfalls in the middle of winter in order to propose. It's a bad idea. And then the other really quick story, I'm sorry, it's really quick. He proposed to me first, and the way he did, I wrote lots of fan fiction. I still do. Lots of fan fiction. And so he wrote a fan fiction and snuck it to me. I didn't know it was by him. And he wrote it and said, hey, you should read this fan fiction. And I read it, and I didn't read the author's note at the end that said, will you marry me? This is Tori, will you marry me? I didn't read the author's note, and so I was reading it next to him, and he said, well, what'd you think? And I said, I'd give it a B+. There were one or two flaws. I didn't like the inclusion of the song lyrics. I feel like that detracts from fanfiction sometimes. So I analyzed the fanfiction that he wrote to propose to me, because I didn't read the author's note. I felt so bad, and then he was standing there with, a ring box, and I'm like, Oh. So I managed to ruin not only his proposal, but my own proposal. So I ruined both of our proposals.
So the moral of the story is big arrows pointing down
Always
to the
read the
author's
author's note.
Okay. All right, Tara. Best date.
Story time.
So at this point, my favorite dates are the ones that we have now. Not from like early when we were first dating and, you know, all that bright kind of shiny new love. What I love now is, like I said, he's a stay-at-home dad, so we'll make sure the kids are in school or childcare or whatever. I will take the day off and we will just have a day, and it's awesome. We will go to a diner and get a really good breakfast. We'll go to the movies and have popcorn for lunch, and we'll just like hang out, just the two of us, watch something we're really excited about, and just spend the day with each other, soaking it all in without any little people going, hey, I need something. And that's my favorite. Like, I don't want big fancy dates. I want to just have time, and good time where we can enjoy each other, which is a less interesting story, but is very true.
How did he propose to you?
This is actually kind of funny. He didn't propose until after we actually had the wedding booked. So I know this is going to sound crazy. Our whole story is like backwards. So he was one of my best friends, which is actually probably how we ended up in a relationship anyway. But when he asked me out, we just kind of knew, because it's like when you're that close with somebody, at that point, you're basically saying, do you want to be my partner forever? And we knew we were going to get married. And he started talking to who was his best friend at the time. But so we live in Canada, and his best friend lived in the UK and was a teacher. And he was like, well, if you guys are going to get married anyway, I'm going to have this week off in November. So I called about like the church and the pastor, because it was the church I grew up in. And then also my pastor who baptized me when I was 12, who is retired. But I asked if he would be willing to do it. But Neil hadn't actually proposed at that point. So a few weeks later, that was when he proposed. He was like, hey, you know what we haven't done yet? We're just hanging out. Like, we were just crashed on his bed and hanging out. And he's like, hey, I just realized we're missing something. And he asked me at that point. So and then I think we had our first like actual official date a few weeks after that. Like, it was just, we did everything so bizarrely wrong. Not wrong, actually. That's not fair to say. We did everything so backwards because we were already so much a part of each other's life.
Well, both your proposals, as odd as they are, beat my own proposal.
All right.
Well, she said no when I asked her.
Oh, no.
And then I was upset about that.
Oh, no. Well, obviously she changed her mind.
And so I was fighting with her about it for like a couple of months. Like, why won't you marry me? So one day I sent her an email. We worked at the same place, so I sent her an email over the office email. Well, I don't know why you're with me, because you won't even marry me, and I want to spend my whole life with you, and I don't understand why you won't marry me, kind of thing. So she wrote back, yes. So I'm like, yes, what? Did you just agree to marry me?
Oh.
Like, what?
Well, it worked out.
Anyway. So yeah, in the middle of an argument, my wife agreed to marry me. It was very strange.
So good.
Not at all romantic.
Oh.
All right. Thank you both so very much for joining me for this season of Ask a Bisexual. I'm Sheena. I've been joined by Rae D Magdon and Tara Scott, and we have been busting the myths around bisexual women. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. Sexual.
Hey.
I had to do it once.
It's the right one to do it, too.
Yes, the very last one. Bye.